Allah,
Allah,
the Father of the universe,
the Father of the universe,
the Father of love,
the Father of love,
truth,
truth,
peace,
peace,
freedom, and justice.
freedom, and justice.
Allah is my protector,
Allah is my protector,
my guide,
my God,
and my salvation.
my salvation.
By night and my day,
By night and by day,
through his holy prophet,
through His holy prophet,
Noble Juradi,
Deuteronomy,
Islam.
Islam. I'm gonna go into the divine warning. I don't know if you want to check your bag real quick, just see if you got the book. Moral statements. If you could just check real quick, just. Oh, okay. So I'm gonna look for the divine warning on the screen. Just share it. Oh, there we go. A divine warning by the prophet for the nations. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. And it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and principles that allude to slavery. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and to go back to that state of mind of their forefathers, divine and national principles, that they will be law abiders and receive their divine right as citizens according to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name and religion. There is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish divine and national movement, which is incorporated in this government, recognized by all other nations of the world. And through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights, unmolested by other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government and not under a granted privilege, as been the existing condition for many years or many generations. You who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those that know law in the city hall and among the officials in your government and ask them in an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they are glad to see me bring you out of darkness into light. Money doesn't make the man. It is free national standards and power that makes a man and a nation. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver, and commerce belong to the citizens alone. And without your national citizenship, by name and principle, you have no true wealth. And I am hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. Help me to save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of government. I am depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution for the United States of America. I love my people and I desire their unity and mind back to their own national and divine standard, because day by day they have been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government by claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. If Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. And all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national descent name, and if he fails to give it, he is misused, misprisoned, and exiled. Any group of people that fail to answer up, any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principles, because to be a citizen of any government, you must claim your national descent name, because they place their trust upon issues and names formed by their forefathers. The word Negro alludes to the Latin language to the word nigger, the same as the word color alludes to anything that is painted, varnished, and dyed. And every nation must bear a national descent name for their forefathers, because honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon the earth. These names have never been recognized by any true American citizen of this day. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by said national government in which they live. The 14th and 15th Amendment brought the North and South in unity, placing the Southerners, who were at that time without power, with constitutional body of power. And at the time, 1865, the free national constitutional law that was in force since 1774 declared all men equal and free. And if all men are declared by the national constitution to be free and equal, since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendment for the salvation of our people and citizens. So, there isn't but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem that which was lost, and that is through the above statements. Then the lion and the lamb can lie down together in yonder hills, and neither will be harmed, because love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will be reigning in this land. In those days, the United States will be the most greatest civilized and prosperous government of the world. But if the above principles are not carried out by the citizens and my people in this government, the worst is yet to come, because the great God Allah is not pleased with the works that are being performed in North America by my people. And this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, diseases, etc. And I, the prophet, do hereby believe that this administration of the government being more wisely prepared by more genuine citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and through the help of such classes of citizens, I, the prophet, truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way of their forefathers and learn to stop serving carnal customs that merely ideas of men that have never done them any good, but have always harmed them. So I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin which has been committed and is being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know it is not the true and divine way, and without understanding they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin. And there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically, etc., in their present condition of their endeavorment, in which they themselves try to force upon a civilized world. They will not refrain from their sinful ways of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. And they fought the Southerner for all these great misuses. But I have traveled in the South and examined conditions there, and it is the works of my people continuously practicing the things which bring dishonor, disgrace, disrespect to any nation that lives the life. And I am hereby calling on all true American citizens for moral support and finance to help me in my great missionary work, to bring my people out of darkness into the marvelous light from the Prophet, Islam. All right, so I want to cover a couple bullet points. Go into some history. And just, once again, the whole reason is to have things in the forefront of our minds so we can relay it to somebody else. And, since I've been out and about, I've been seeing people that, for instance, yesterday I was at the pop-up and somebody was like, Bobby Hemmett. He pointed at me and just said, Bobby Hemmett. And he said, do I know who, on the intro of Oppie, what's it? Yeah, do you know who Phil Valentine is? And I was like, yeah. He was like, are you a Moor? You black or Moor? I didn't get into the whole black or Moor thing because he was kind of, I feel like he was kind of like unstable a little bit, but kind of like, you know what I mean? And but the feds brought that to his attention, So Bobby Hemmett and the other brother, Phil Valentine, introduced that brother to what a Moor is. And then I guess I was the first Moor he seen like out. And it was like, he was like, you got open meetings or is this East Coast or is it just a, you know, the social media thing or YouTube lectures or whatever. He never has seen him more like in real life. And then he walked away. He was like, Robbie hit me. He just walked off. I was like, man, like you never, it never gets old, man. Like the experiences, like just live, But my point of bringing that up is, you might run across somebody that has more knowledge of the common man, but just might not have as much as us, and they just need a little detail or take them over the top. And you just want to have that on file for them. And it's not nothing. It's always in the same type of realm. It's always about how did this happen? How did we fall? How is this Egypt? How is that not the motherland? It's always in the same space. So don't worry about it getting too crazy. It's always in the same space. It might be slightly worded different, but you just want to have the historical timeline kind of down for them, even if you don't got all the specifics, but just a general, and bring it and slow walk them to how we got to the condition that we are in today. Right. So we'll just take a segment, history lessons here and there, get snapshots, right? I like how the brother broke this down, Brother Atazaz Bey, in The Hidden Nation, the section dealing with Continental Confederacy. All right. So, quote, I'm calling this section the Continental Confederacy to highlight the two governments that were the predecessors to the USA, the Iroquois Confederation and the Continental Congress. The former was a government of the foremost, more or less indigenous tribes of the North American landmass. The latter was mainly the European, quote unquote, Blackamoor affiliates who helped administer the transition of the Slavs into being a corporate nation. So we have Iroquois, and we know that's still a corrupted, I think it's Haudenosaunee Confederation. But we got the American citizens, and then we got Continental Congress was created by who? Our cousins. British Moors and European Blackamoor, quote unquote, affiliates helped administer what ultimately became the United States. Because before the United States, you got, right, the 8 presidents before George Washington, and who were one of them? Benjamin Banneker Bay. What's the other one? There's another one. John Hanson. Anybody got another one? I know it's a couple more. It's like 8 more polymelanated Brutish Moors before George Washington. Right, who was just more, I guess, diluted. I guess, you know what I'm saying, to start mixing with the Slav, right? Mhm. All right, so that part of the history we want to be able to relay to somebody that are very interested. You know, the eyes is open, they ready to listen. We want to be able to assess how everything kind of went down, right, and what was going on, right? So it was us, the Brutish Moors, who are helping. What were the British Moors doing? Helping doing? Europe and the affiliate Blackamoor affiliates. They help administer the transition of the Slavs into a corporate nation. So we were assisting, helping, right? Them getting their stuff together, and ultimately they'll be called the United States later in the game. Their body politic. All right. It was the Iroquois who, being of distinctly African descent, and here's a reference point, Racial History of Man, author last name Dixon, to further go into that point of how the Iroquois is being distinctly African, quote unquote.
You can see this under the sea.
And these Iroquois taught the Europeans about the republic form of government. So that's another thing to keep in mind. The Iroquois, being African descent, quote unquote, taught the Europeans, or the Slavs, modern Europeans rather, about republican form of government. Another reference point to support that fact is a book called History of Allen County. All right. Now, which should be more than obvious, seeing that the Europeans were under monarchy, the modern Europeans were under monarchy and existed as a feudal state of lords and serfs. Once the ground rules were established, the Continental Congress, even though they weren't actually continental, as Spain owned Louisiana, started to lay the groundwork for their new corporation to be handed over to their Slavs and warded Mamelukes in perpetual operation with a pseudo-nationality. So once again, our cousins, British Moors, were grooming them to, for one, run government, operation and stuff like that. And they basically showed them how the Moors that were already here, quote unquote, the Iroquois, they showed them how to run government. So the Constitution is just a mirror image of the Iroquois Confederation's Constitution. I'm not going to go into the details of the Boston Tea Party taxation, but look into the Articles of Confederation and Declaration of Independence. Just like a father hands over the keys to the car to an eagerly waiting child, the Continental Congress handed over the seals first used by John Hanson to the likes of George Washita. Now Washington, and I say Washita because there was no surname Washington original to England. So that's not even an English name. After they fought a mock revolutionary war to gain finance and slaughter the indigenous Moors. Right? This is a historical account. A key to this piece of history is realizing that the Europeans, or modern Europeans, had no right to declare themselves independent on our land because they had no status. The Declaration of Independence was a complaint letter that was ecclesiastical, and no Moorish nation co-signed it to allow the colonies to expand past the agreed upon leased region of the East Coast, or to organize themselves as specific states. That is something they pursued through their documents, such as the Articles of Confederation. In summary, Europe learned our ways and took over slowly but surely. It started off as a grand experiment with intentions of peace and friendship, but the insincere hearts of Freemasons and ambitious Slavs alike won out. Right, one of those ambitious Slavs would be Thomas Jefferson. He was pushing that democracy heavy, and it was slowly he was slowly campaigning.
Oh, that's right. Benjamin Banneker.
Right, exactly. Benjamin Banneker wrote a letter to him, like, hold your horses.
One of the main ones outside of
Yeah, he was out of control. Yeah, right. Benjamin Banneker Bay, he was like, hold on, did you forget how things was going on here?
Okay.
Like, you forget your position as the Slav? All right. So from 1774, which is Continental Congress time, until present day, we are being misnomered as blacks, Negroes, and coloreds, all on the custom of birthright theft. All right, so we want to just have stuff downloaded, right? We'll have conversation with people and these things will just pop up. You know, our mind is like a hard drive, right? And we can upload things in our memory, right? All right, so I'm transitioning to the New Madrid earthquake. And once again, these are markers that we want to just use, right? Time frame markers. The New Madrid earthquake. Beside for the many scandalous acts done by the insidious who wished to hypothecate the lands of America, there was a major geological event that is not often mentioned that helped the execution of the massive land grab. The New Madrid earthquake of 1811 was an 8.2 magnitude shakeup of North America. It is an underlying yet important reason why so many people were able to be displaced, killed, and disappeared. Since a mass majority of our ancestors lived up and down the Mississippi River Valley, many towns, buildings, and infrastructure was destroyed. Hence, the reason why many long-established tribes and families had to move around to new habitations. In the mire of the ensuing chaos, many Moorish families were killed, not only by the ravishes of nature, but by the campaign of European and true Americans, or Native Americans, actually not true Americans. So a campaign between Europeans and Native Americans who sought to disband the birthright of the indigenous Moors, right? So we have a unification after the New Madrid earthquake. It was a disruption of different clans, right? So that part of the land might not have been inhabitable just to be suitable just to be in no more. So we had to be nomadic and move right. So a lot of our fortresses and our strongholds, we became like weaker than normally, right? As far as our defense, right? Kind of our guard was a little lower as we was being nomadic. So the Native Americans or the Mongolian stock and the modern European decided to take advantage of that. That's the summary of the climate, right? All right, and the significance. Splitting families apart, New Madrid earthquake, the New Madrid earthquake, splitting families apart and teaching the youth counterculture. So the Native Americans, or the quote unquote Indians, which are the Mongolians, right, that came over here. Genghis Khan brought them, right, to help assist in attempting to conquer the Barbary states over here, but they were unsuccessful. Then they left back. The Mongolians got stuck here because they crossed through the Bering Straits. That melted.
How did they get that?
They retreated before
Okay,
the Bering Straits melted. Right.
why they didn't take their own food?
You know, they were in the caste system under the Khanites.
Oh,
They're
were
bottom.
first.
Yeah, they're
Okay,
bottom.
yeah,
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 they would
yeah.
be the Slavs. The
Yeah,
Mongolians would be
That's right.
the status of Slav at this point. So they stuck here,
Mhm.
Bering Strait, right? So we allowed them to be here in the tents and the teepees. They're not in the Taj Mahal style buildings and things of that nature, the grander stuff. We allowed them the reservations. That's the reservation, right? You hear that, right? So the Mongolians. So these Mongolians later in the game took advantage of the earthquake and they teamed up with the modern European who were brutish, Moorish, Slav subjects that got taught how to run government. Later on, that crew linked up with the Mongolians. And after they, were happened to be successful in certain clans of overthrowing or whatever, they implemented a doctrine, and that doctrine was splitting the families apart, teaching the youth the counterculture to separate them from ancestral ways. Within generations, the Moors at large didn't know who they were anymore. Throw in the blight of amalgamation, and we were headed to being finished off for good. A part of this story is told in the misunderstood Trail of Tears, right? Trail of Tears, epic American history. After this, and our mischance to reclaim our national sovereignty before the introduction of the so-called 13th Amendment, we seem doomed to perpetual mental slavery. But alas, Allah had other plans. On January 8th, 1886, our much-needed Redeemer, the Prophet Noble Jew Ali, was born, right? So we want to know segments of information, because now we got more stuff we can piece together, right? And then the information you do know already, let's put that with the historical information that you did know. Now you know that much more. There's less gray. Now you can explain it to somebody. I feel like there's one more segment in here that we'll go over one more segment in this the brother's book, Atazaz Bey, The Hidden Nation, the section of the Pan American Conference in 1928, because I feel like we touched on it like 2 to 3 Sundays ago on another aspect as far as Sultan Julep Aziz and how he's been in the Circle 7, right? That's how. Right. Yeah. And the 1928 is the same date that Circle 7 got published, right? So, okay. So Pan American Conference, 1928. Understanding, regaining, and establishing diplomatic relations, Noble Jew Ali reintroduced our ancient bloodline to the Western Hemisphere and the world at the Pan American Conference in Panama in 1928. Oddly enough, the minutes of record from this particular meeting have been obscured to find, if found at all. With the Moorish Divine and National Movement, the Moorish Science Temple of America, fully functioning and blessing of Sultan of Mecca, Saudi Arabia, preceding this meeting, it was perfect timing for the heir apparent and basically Emperor of America to reclaim the throne for his people. The prophet was accompanied by a polyglot of the Moorish American named C. Kirkland Bey to handle any language barriers. Drew Ali was welcomed in Panama with a regal salute and all the pomp of a powerful dignitary to the conference. So once again, Noble Jew Ali was at this international conference and looked at as a dignitary. He had translators with him, even though we know C. Kirkland Bey later in the game turned sour. But the point is, he had the mind state to have translators with him. Because even in today, if our people could speak Spanish, Arabic fluently, we could communicate our position as Moors and where we're coming from a lot faster. Because 9 times out of 10, the people that don't speak English the best is the people willing to work with us the most. We just don't know the language.
So, Nobuju Ali was alive because when they was all for it.
Yeah, I was a chauffeur. I was his personal chauffeur. He chauffeured the prophet around. And he knew like 7 different languages. Yeah. But he just, he went left field. All right. It has been outlined that the Moorish Americans were given the land title conferred upon by the other heads of state to Nobuju Ali. And you can cross-reference the book Motok Book of the Dead by Peter Moon. He goes into this as well. The prophet also verifies such in his literature titled to being proclaimed in every meeting. March 18th, 1929. All right. I think that's one more. Berbers and Barbary. As the ancient Moabites were masters of astrology, they knew how to interpret cosmological events and occurrences. This type of knowledge is the true understanding of psychic ability, because if you know you are nature and the cosmos, one must only understand patterns and cycles to know what shall transpire in the human epic. Think of the phrase written in the stars. To intake this elementary lesson, armed with foresight of time to come, they move throughout the world recording and leaving the sacred gnosis, or knowledge, of true existence. The major hub of that activity is the throat chakra of the world, i.e. Hikupta, or Tamare, or Kemet, because the throat chakra represents spirit being spoken into the physical. And notice these names aren't Egypt. They're Hikupta, Tamare, right? Tamer, right? But now you see that the more ancient you get, the more is in the word. The more you see, the more in the word. Yeah, Mauritania, Marrakesh, all this, where the Moors is at. And the land is not fixed. I tell everybody, if we were nomadic, wherever we settled, that's what the name of the land became. So that means Morocco got wheels on it, right? America. These places ain't, they try to fix your mind to like these is, I'm saying Egypt, I'm saying over here, when I'm saying Kemet, I'm saying a certain place. So, let that sink in, right? From the first dynasty of the Sumerket, who eventually ignited the state of Sumer or Sumeria, we have the so-called Arab declination into Persia, all the way down to the people we know as the Berbers of Barbary. I say so-called Arab because Arab is not a people or nationality, but a language spoken and formulated by Moors of the earliest Maghreb dynasties. And when you look up Maghreb, just look up Maghreb. It's the etymological is going to take you to sunset or the setting, and the sun sets in the west. All right, so the Maghreb dynasties are the western dynasties of the world, of the Moors, the Americas. This is why the term barbarian has such a malicious connotation until this very day, being a derogatory term for the ancient Canaanite Phoenicians that ran the region we now erroneously call Middle East. As we stray from our religion and amalgamated our direct consanguinity, our bloodline, those sons and daughters are so-called Arabs, right, the amalgamated or the so-called Arabs, resented their forebearers to the point they started societies against them. So our people mixed with the Slavs, created a offspring that was hostile, and that the hostility of the offspring created a society to rebel. Right. Um, that's heavy when you think about it, right? On a lot of different levels. Because when you think about as within, so without, if you're blending contrary energies, it's bound to show like something, you know what I mean? Like that, you know what I mean? It's clashing, you know? And it's coming out through the personalities of the offspring.
They mix like intelligence with like craziness.
Right. Right. We became a negative aspect of them. These Berbers, who have always been adherents of Islamism, gathered under the Mohammedan creed of Islam and reconquered Al-Andalus, led by General Tariq Zayed, to civilize the Albion hybrids to the ways of harmony with nature. This time period is known as the Renaissance of 711 AD and lasted until 1492. Through this time, great transitions took place and magnificent works were accomplished. From Arabian Nights, Alhambra, University, Streetlights of Seville, and an exuberance of knowledge shared on esoteric and occult matters, came one of the most enlightened times of peace and learning among men. This is the origin of modern European high civilization and is the key point to accept why all European nations have Moorish origins, or modern European nations all have Moorish origins, and cross-reference the coat of arms of all European kingdoms today. The Pope's coat of arms is going to have a Moor or a Moabitus right now. So note, all Olmec, Berber, Indian, Naga, African, Sumerian, etc., originate from America. This is proven in a tremendous work called America is the True Old World by Amun Hotep El Bey. And that's interesting, the whole, when you say the Nagas are originally from America, and most people think about who are the Nagas. They're going to think Hindustan, they're going to think that region of the world, modern day India, Indonesia, Pakistan, right? So I think that's a great segue to this book I was thinking of transitioning to, Queen Mu and the Egyptian Sphinx. And in actuality, that last part, I just read that right now. To further go into the fact that the Mayans traveled to Hindustan and became the Naga. It comes from a different angle. So I'm gonna read a couple segments from this book, Queen Mu and the Egyptian Sphinx by Augustus Lee Plajoin. All right. And I know last time we read this book, maybe a little while ago. So I'm thinking about just starting this chapter from the top. Yeah. All right. So on examining the ornaments of the Atlantes, right, the people of Atlantis that support the altar, we cannot help explaining why this is not Burma. So Burma would just be the Hindu statue or whatnot, and it looks the same as the American statue of the Mayans. So a knowledge of ancient geometric symbology makes it easy to understand cosmic diagrams. In the center of the figure, we see a circle inscribed with a hexagon formed by sides of two interlaced triangles. Okay. The Egyptians held, remember the quote unquote Egyptians, held the equilateral triangle as the symbol of nature. So the Mayans feel the same way. In their hieroglyphs, it meant worship. For the Christians, the equilateral triangle contained the open eye of Siva, which is the symbol of deity. Of course, we're talking about the early Christians. You know, the ones that knew who Krishna was. The Hindus and the Chaldeans regarded it as the emblem of the spirit of the universe. And I'm just going to show a visual of what we're talking about here. We're dealing with virtually as above, so below. Artifact, a Mayan artifact. Esoterically, this center circle represents the sun, the light giver of the physical world, evolved from fire and water. I don't know if y'all seen this. That's a Mayan artifact. That's pretty much what I'm going into. Right, so going into the sun, the triangles, right? 12 gates. We're going to this right now. But this is what I'm talking about, right? So this is a Mayan artifact. So esoterically, this central circle represents the sun, the light, and the life giver of the physical world, evolved from fire and water. It is well known that among the ancient occultists of all nations, the triangle with the apex upward symbolizes fire, that the apex downward symbolizes water. Triangle upward, triangle down, right? Fire, water. And that's one expression, but we also know it's physical and spiritual, right? Physical, spiritual, the opposites, as above, so below. The symbology of the triangle, basically. Right? It has multiple. It could be male, female. Yin and yang expresses this pretty much the same expression. The outer circle that circumscribes the triangle, remember that? The 12 gates that was around it? 12 gates, did I show you? Yeah. So the outer circle that circumscribes the triangles is the horizon, that apparent boundary of the material world. So that's what that's representing, the boundary of the material world, within which, in its daily travels, the sun seems to be tied up. Hence the name Intihuatana, or the sun halter, given by the ancient Peruvians to the stone circles so profusely scattered over the high plateaus of the Andes along the shores of the Titicaca in India, Arabia, Northern Africa, Northern Europe, where they are known as druidical circles, right? People know who the Druids are. Everybody familiar with the Druids? The Druids would be the Druids? That's actually a people.
No, so there's in Ireland.
Yeah, some of them. But Jews would be like nobles and high priests, um, people of that nature as well. Matter of fact, let me just go into it. Look up what a Druid or Druidism. So Druidism or Druidry is a modern spiritual or religious movement that promotes the cultural or cultivation of honorable relationships with the physical landscapes, flora, fauna, and diverse people of the world, as well as with nature deities, and spirits of nature and place. So Wikipedia calling this a modern, but clearly the principles is ancient that you know what I mean? So these were Druids, people that were into nature, spiritual, becoming one with it, right? So Druids is, that's just one name. You know, it's other names of people like that, right? Sufis, monks, shaman, right? All right. So the 12 scallops, once again, back talking about that, the 12 scallops going around is representing essentially the stations of the sun. So the 12 scallops which surrounded the outer circle are the 12 houses or resting places of the sun. That is the 12 months of the solar year or 12 signs of the zodiac. As to the four double rays, which was those like the tails that were hanging on the bottom of it, it was two sets of four. Those nearest to the houses of the sun typify the primordial four. The primordial four, right? Direct emanations from the central sun. The four heavenly giants who helped in fashioning the material universe. The lower set of four, right, symbolize the four primordial substances known to modern sciences as nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon. Those various combinations form the four primitive elements: fire, water, air, and earth. So nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, carbon is the essential ingredient to even establishing fire, water, air, and earth. And that's interesting because highly melanated beings is carbon, right? So it looks like we directly involved with nature. You know what I mean? On a deep level. All right. And this is all going to tie in, like I said, to the last book, as far as leading to how the Hindus becoming the Nagas or whatnot first were in America. So I'm just doing a little precursor with a little detailed culture of the Mayan people. So Mayan colonists are Maya colonists who carried their conception of cosmic evolution to India. So here we have it. So the term colonist doesn't always have to be negative in the context of the modern day colonists, because essentially it'd be a nation going to another place that's not really the same as theirs to a degree, and just having their ways be absorbed in that area. Typically, at this time, we're dealing with our own people, with just different type of, slightly different customs, the way they wear their hair or something, just slightly different things. But we all knew we were one. We would go over there and maybe take it to another level, raise them higher, right? That would still be considered colonization, even though it got taken to a higher level. But it's on a positive tip. So the Maya colonists who carried their conceptions of cosmic, right, cosmological evolution to India or Hindustan. The Mayans in America, right? American, indigenous to America, nomadically went to Hindustan and brought the culture with them over there. Fearing less the meaning of this diagram, purposely made so simple by the wise men in their mother country, should not be sufficiently intelligible to the initiates to whom they communicated. The initiates being the people that they came in contact with in Hindustan. Communicated it in the land of their adoption, amplified it, and composed the Sri Santara. So the Mayans went to Hindustan, furthered the culture, and amplified it a little bit. So let's look at what is Sri Santara. They amplified it. The Mayans went to Hindustan, shared the culture, American culture essentially, American culture, to the Hindustan area, and composed Sri Santara. So let's look up Sri Santara. Sri Santara. Let's go to images. Okay, so we see we have an image. Now let's see. Let's get a brief summary of what this is. What is a Sri Santara? Okay, so a motherland sacred, inspired religion. Okay. That makes sense. So the Mayans brought the Sri Santara to Hindustan. Sacred religion. Making each part of it easy for its comprehension. This at first sight may appear like an assertion of private opinion. It is not, however. It is the stating of an historical fact that becomes evident that we study said Sri Santara and notice that the names of its different parts, from Aditi, the boundless, to Maya, the earth, are not Sanskrit, but pure American Maya words. So we have words in Hindustan that are purely American or American, not Sanskrit, which is a language associated with Hindustan. Now, if the Hindu priests or the Brahmins, which were the Brahmins, did not receive their cosmology from the Mayas, together with the diagram by which they symbolized it, how did it happen that they adopted precisely the same geometrical figures as the Mayas to typify their notions or ideas of the creation of the universe, which we are told they borrow from the materialistic religion of the non-Vedic population? in that in giving names to the various parts of said figures, they made use of vocabulary not belonging to their own vernacular, but to a language spoken by the inhabitants of a country distant many thousand miles from their own, and separated from it by the waste of the ocean, the traversing of which was by them, as it by their descendants, regarded as defilement. We must not lose sight of the fact that the Devanas and Nagas were people who did not belong to the Aryan stock. So I'm gonna look up Devanas real quick, see what they say. Devanas. And remember, the Aryans is the ones that
See the fathers,
Devanas.
the leaders.
No, it's actually Danavas. I'm gonna spell it D. There we go. Danavas. So when I look up Danava, it goes Hinduism. And this is Wikipedia. The Danavas are a mythological race of demigods. You feel me? The half brothers to the Devas. Yep, you said it right.
Oh, I heard of it.
In the Dayatyas, and are found in a range of Hindu texts. The Danavas are a part of a larger group of Asuras and are typically portrayed as opposed to the Hindu deities. However, historically, the role of Hinduism is varied. So that's a quick, overview. So the Danavas and Nagas, which we already established, the Nagas came from America and are just essentially Mayan, were people who did not belong to the Aryan stock, in that they suffered a fierce persecution at the hands of the Brahmins when these acquired power. As to these, their origin is one of the most obscure points in the annals of ancient India. They are barely mentioned in the Vedic hymns, when in remote times the Aryans invaded the Punjab, or the Punjabi, right? Which we know as the Five Rivers. The Brahmins had no power or authority, so the Brahmins had no power and authority at this time. They were merely messengers and sacrificers. No food so pure as cooked by a Brahmin. Others among them, having a devout turn mind, were hermits immersed in contemplation. At the time of Alexander's conquest of northern India, many lived in covens, practiced occultism. They were called gymnosophists by the Greeks. So I want to look at, the reason I want to look this word up is because when we talk about same thing like Egypt, when the quote unquote Greeks are general terms, you're going to see that it's used as a blanket to cover a lot of people. Gymnosophist. Yeah, do that. I like. So look, now once again, it's Wikipedia. So a Greek corruption. Whenever you hear gymnosophist, just know they're saying they're looking at you as a naked philosopher or a naked wise man. Is the name given by the Greeks to a certain ancient Indian philosophers who pursued asceticism to the point. Let me open it up a little more. Right, Indian philosophers who pursued asceticism. Now, what is asceticism? Asceticism is a lifestyle characterized by abstinence from sensual pleasures, often for the purpose of pursuing spiritual goals. Ascetics may withdraw from the world for their practices or continue to be part of their society, but typically adopt a frugal lifestyle. So, right, people that wanted to ascend, get in tune with nature, right? Same thing with Druids, right? And as you continue reading, right, to the point of regarding food and clothing as detrimental to the purity of thought. So a certain ancient Hindu philosophers who pursued get into oneness with nature to the point regarding food and clothing as detrimental to the purity of thought. They were noted to have been vegetarian by several Greek authors. They were also gymnosophists in Upper Egypt, who were called Ethiopian gymnosophists by the Greeks, or Apollonius of Tyana. In Greek literature, they are mentioned in association with the Persian Magi, the Chaldeans, the Druids, the Celts, and the priests of Egypt. So you see this blanket, they're going to hit you with a blanket. But when you dissect who they associate with this blanket, you say, hold on, they're all Moorish. And they're from different parts of the world. Celts is in, right, so-called modern day Europe. The priest of Egypt. So I wanted to just go into that. The misnomers, you know what I mean? Basically. So wise men. But it must be remembered that the period between the establishment of the Vedic, which is the Hindu holy books, the Vedic settlements of the Saraswati, and the conquest of Hindustan by the Aryans, when they had become the leading power, probably covers intervals of 1,000 years. The Aryans appear to have had no definite area or definite idea. So the Aryans had no idea of a universe of being or the creation of a universe. From them, therefore, the Brahmins could not have borrowed their account of the creation, which differs from that we might infer from the Vedic hymns. So this author, Augustus Lee Plajoin, is laying the foundation that the Brahmins could not have got this wisdom from the Aryans, but they had no idea about universal principles. Still, Manu borrowed some of the idea conveyed in his account of the creation of the universe. From whom did he borrow then? The Brahmins rarely attempted to ignore or denounce the traditions of any new people with whom they came in contact, but rather they converted such materials into vehicles for promulgation of their peculiar tenets. So the Brahmins basically to take, I guess colonist strategy 101 was to take whatever the people there identify as salvation, and you just take aspects of that and put it in your remix to force your agenda. So it's like an easier pill to swallow, like it's something they can kind of identify with. So the Nagas we have seen were a highly civilized people whose rulers held sway over the whole Hindustan. When the Aryans first established their first colonies on the banks of the Saraswati, later on we shall see that these Nagas were originally Maya adepts, right? So that's the connection to the other book in a long fashion, right? To further expound how the Nagas came from America, right? They were originally Maya adepts and the reason I'm kind of emphasizing because, most people think Mayans is just exclusively in America and don't know the ramifications of the empire. And this modern European, he's in the Masonic order. I looked him up, Augustus Lee Plajoin. He's coming from the point of saying Mayan. We know this is the Moroccan Empire, or these is Moors at large, but the whole thing is to know when you hear Mayan, Carthaginian, Sumerian, don't get lost in that. It's all the same people, right? So clearly so this author's saying the Mayan Empire, We know it's the Moroccan Empire. You're gonna say the Mayan Empire covered the whole world, basically. The Moors are gonna tell you directly it was more Moroccan Empire. You just gotta use scholarship and your intellectual faculties and common sense, and put all these books that are reference points, not only to digest it, but once again to tell somebody else in a scholarly way. So the Nagas were originally Maya adepts who in remote ages migrated from Maya to Burma, right, Hindustan, whence they spread their doctrines among the civilized nations of Asia and Africa. So modern day Asia and Africa got taught by Americans. All the knowledge, the motherland is America, the Americas, right? Then we expanded the culture. How else explain the use of American Maya language by Hindus, calling Maya the material world, or Ma, M-A, Ma, for land or country? So I'll stop right there, actually. Just wanted to continue to reiterate and cross-reference what the brother brought up in his book, Atazaz, The Hidden Nation, covering that the Nagas, amongst other civilizations, came out of America and not the other way around. You know, the motherland is not Africa, not in the context of how we were taught, you know. But I yield the floor. And anybody got any thoughts? Anything they want to chime in? All right. Well, we can close out in prayer. And that'll be it.
Left on you, right? Hello? Father of the universe,
Father of the universe,
the Father of love,
Father of love,
truth,
truth,
peace,
peace,
freedom, and justice.
freedom, and justice.
Allah is my protector,
Allah is my protector,
my guide,
my God,
my salvation.
my salvation.
I night and by day,
My night and my day.
through his holy prophet,
Through his holy prophet,
over Deuteronomy.
Oh.